can't be out in the field, so might as well see what's wrong with this thing here. I think I got all the head bolts out. And I guess let's see what the carnage is. Man, I really triggered some of you John Deere fellers in the dyno video. Cracked me up. I don't hate 4020s. 4020s are legendary tractors. I just hate this one. So that I was upset with this one. So I don't need to know that, you know, you've had a 4020 for 93 years and it has 85,000 hours on it and you just changed the oil for the first time. You know, I get it. They're good tractors. My favorite comment was a feller that said, 4020 isn't the problem, it's the person working on it, and that he wouldn't give me something like 10 cents for my 2 red pieces of shit that I dynoed that day. Well, that's good because they're not for sale. This is. Dun dun dun. Oh, I don't. I mean, I see some strange streaks up and down, but yeah, at first glance, I don't see anything catastrophic here. I say. You guys want to see? All right, so there's some scuffs on that cylinder there, and I can see some there. There's one right there. Interesting. Have to look at the head gasket better, but I don't see anywhere that it's blown, like between cylinders or anything. This is strange. The head. I don't know. Let me clear a spot off on the bench. I'll look at this head better. There's something funky going on up here. Hold on, I'm trying to get my light out here. So you got exhaust valve, intake, exhaust. Number one intake valve, it's like it almost looks like it has exhaust on it, because every other one looks like that, like kind of oil coated. So this is making me wonder what's going on here, like if it's got a crack or something's not right there. I think I'll just take all the valves out of it, disassemble this head, and take a harder look at it. Well, I think I figured it out. And I'm actually pretty happy with all that it is. I was right on that. Number one intake valve. I had a machine shop completely go through that head. They put a whole new kit in it with all new valves and guides and seals, and they decked that head. Obviously they didn't like vacuum check it, because what's going on is that number one intake valve is not sitting in the seat right. You can once I got it in the right light, I ended up taking the injectors to my Case IH dealer today, and I threw the head in the truck too, and service manager, we hoisted it out of there with their shop crane, and we were standing looking at all the valves and in the ports with a flashlight, and Jeff goes, "Wait a minute, turn the flashlight off." And as soon as I did, you could see daylight. Looking in the port, you could see daylight all the way around the valve seat on number one. So something was no bueno there. So whatever. He's the extent of my valve train tools is I have a spring compressor. I don't rebuild cylinder heads. You know, I take that shit somewhere. But they have one there at the dealer, and he was going to he was willing to pop that valve out and take a look at it, see if the seat just needs to be cut a little more, or the valve needs to be ground a little, or if the valve's bent. And then he was gonna just squirt some penetrating oil or something in all the ports and make sure none of the other valves are leaking. So that's cool. The injectors, these were all brand new injectors, but I wanted to make sure that something wasn't majorly wrong or they were way off. We tested all these at the dealership today. The pop pressure is higher than it's supposed to be. I mean, the book says 2650, but every one of these was at 3000. And really, at the end of the day, I don't think that's going to hurt anything at all. They all passed the leak test where you hold pressure on them and watch to see if fuel drips out. They all had a perfect pattern. And like he said, maybe they set them up a little higher, being brand new, to where, you know, when they wear in a little, you're still above, you know, above the spec. But those are all good. I was talking to him about these scuffs, and I showed him some pictures, and we both realized in the picture that those scuffs go all the way to the top. So that, all of those had to happen whenever Deere, loaded those sleeves. And I mean, those are super hard rings. So they're just minimal marks. And, it's not too often that I tear an engine back apart with like 2 hours on it. So we're not worrying about any of that. I rotated the engine around and looked at all of them. I think those lines will completely, go away once the rings are completely, seated in there. This valve hanging open completely would explain the way it was running, like had an extra little like knock to it or miss to it, and the exhaust was like puffing instead of a solid stream. I am gonna check pump timing. It's supposed to be at zero degrees, and I know that's where I put it, but I'm gonna double check it. Turn it over till you're lined up, and then you take this cover off and make sure there's a line in there. So I'm gonna check that. Just ordered a upper gasket kit for it. As far as the steam blow by, this engine had Deere break-in oil in it, and it has been sitting for years in the cold storage part of my shed. And when I drained the oil, there wasn't coolant in it, but it had like condensation from freeze and thaw and everything else over the years sitting and not running, to where we think a lot of the blow-by was in essence steam from the engine oil trying to get rid of that condensation in there. And that kind of makes sense too, because this thing ran way too good. Like it fires right up, and it was making right at 90 horsepower. And I looked up in the book, I don't remember if I have that page open. It's like, I think the book said like 85 horsepower. So we were right at where the horsepower is supposed to be, or a touch above it. So I'm not taking the bottom end of this part. There wasn't metal in the oil. We're going to get that valve straightened out, figure out what's going on with that. I'm going to check. I measured all of this, whenever I put this engine together, but I'm going to double check with a dial indicator my protrusion, or standout on the sleeves. And we think the head gasket started seeping in the back at the end. And our theory is that this engine got put together and it never got like up to coolant temp. Like it just ran for a couple minutes to get moved around the shop. And then it sat for so long that we think that gasket may have never like gotten hot and adhered good, because normally when you pull a head gasket, you gotta peel it off or scrape some of the crap off. That gasket, I literally took my fingernail and popped it right off, and not a single ounce of it stayed on the block or the head. And we really looked over that head gasket when I was there today too, and it looks perfectly fine. You can tell where it was, the rings were squeezed down on it around the sleeves, but the fact that gasket came off like that leads us to believe that it may have never really bonded. That's just our theory. That head got decked
I will check it with my straight edge. I'll check the block also, but I truly think that's all that's wrong with it. I'm going to check pump timing, get that head figured out, put it all back together, put new engine oil in it, and we'll try it again. So there you go. That's all that I can come up with. Nothing else looks wrong. So hopefully we can get it back together and get it on auction time in November, as I was planning on. This is a very nice tractor. It's just it's really it's been a thorn in my side. So the feller that commented that I'm a wannabe mechanic, I guess so, but I'm just glad that it doesn't look like it was anything that I did. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.